One of them was a woman who died when she reportedly blew herself up with a suicide vest. And for more now on that, I'm joined by Nikita Malek in London. Nikita, you are a specialist in gender extremism and in female jihadists. Thank you so much for joining us. Here we have a case of a woman who looks to have blown herself up in this raid. How unusual is that? How unusual are female suicide bombers, if that's what this was?
It's very unusual indeed, because most of the propaganda released by Islamic State and aimed at women tends to have a very prescribed role for women in the home as mothers of the next generation of fighters, and really tells them not to engage in fighting, with the exception of when women feel under threat. So what we're seeing here is this woman, it could be the first female suicide bomber by ISIS. She has engaged in violence because she felt under threat by kafir or disbelievers, and this is justified. In her case, it's a sense of martyrdom, and we need to wait to see whether the dynamic will change in the future and the role of women and what they have to play in violence in Islamic State.
Indeed, because just situate for us, if you will, remind us, the Islamic State group seems to be in so many ways so against women. We hear some horrific stories about treatment of women that come out from the so-called caliphate there in Syria and Iraq. What might the IS group do to convince a woman to do this, if it would convince a woman to do this?
So we are in the midst of publishing a report on exactly this. They have 4 key promises that they use to incentivize women to join. There's religious justification, there's a sense of empowerment, there's also a sense of deliverance. But really what we're seeing is women know what they're getting themselves into when they join Islamic State. They know about the barbarity, they know about the mistreatment, yet they feel that it's justified because they're contributing to something much larger. They feel that they are contributing to a war against the West. But what I think is particularly interesting about this case is that up till this point, women's roles have been very submissive, and now we have a case of a female suicide bomber. So what is going to happen? Is it going to be that this is going to be used as an example for women to have to commit more violent acts, or is it just going to be a one-off case because she was under threat?
Exactly. Another possibility might very well be that she just felt under threat and just made this move independently, which is, I suppose, could also have happened as well. Do we find, or are you finding in your studies, that female suicide bombers are becoming more and more common? I believe we saw a case in Turkey earlier this year.
The case in Turkey was not confirmed. It was an 18-year-old girl who blew herself up, but they didn't claim the attack. Islamic State normally tends to claim and own attacks. So we have yet to see, but they have made very clear in their propaganda again and again that women should use any means available to them to kill when they feel that they are they're under threat, they're under attack. But at the same time, how will this role change for foreign recruits for local participants in the Islamic State? I don't see foreign recruits being used, foreign female recruits being used as suicide bombers, because they're used very well for propaganda. So in the long term, they want to keep these women and give them spaces in their propaganda, in Dabiq, in the future, to incentivize more foreign recruits to come and join them. And so it really remains to be seen what's going to come of this.
Nikita, do you have any information on all, perhaps maybe interviews? I don't know what kind of research exactly you've been doing, but what might push a woman to want to blow herself up in the name of jihad?
Martyrdom, it's their notion of martyrdom. So when you asked me previously about why would a woman join such a barbaric movement, it's very theological in nature as well. So there is the promise of the afterlife. There's a promise of a justification in what you're doing for a greater cause. And just like men, women are indoctrinated, and they are told that this is a struggle and this is the role that they have to play in the struggle. So for them, it makes a lot of sense either to commit a violent act like this and be promised a great afterlife, or if not, then do a jihad every day in teaching the next generation, the next cubs. They call them the fighter cubs. That doing jihad is a good thing, that fighting against the West is the right thing to do, and that in the long term is the key role that women play as mothers to the next generation and good wives to their fighter husbands.
Nikita, what's being done or what can be done to try and convince these women or any potential suicide bombers for that matter that this is not the way?
It requires a direct contradiction of some of the promises that they make. So the first is a very thorough analysis of theological inconsistencies. The second is to create spaces where women can meet and talk about issues that, talk about issues common to them, because what tends to happen with Islamic State is women are meeting online and doing this anyway. Okay. So we have to counter that. Yeah.
Nikita Malek, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. As you yourself, being such a specialist in gender extremism, in female jihadists, when you heard the news earlier this morning that there was a woman who had blown herself up just outside of Paris, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was, as we know, yesterday, 2 women were arrested in Germany as well. So I wasn't particularly surprised because women have a very important role to play in the state building project too. But what I thought was interesting was the context in which the suicide bombing occurred and how that will be justified, I'm sure, later in their propaganda.
All right. Thank you so much, Nikita Malek, for taking the time to speak to us. Nikita Malek is speaking to us there from London, a specialist in gender extremism and female jihadists. Well, this is